How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Drew Johnson. We are coming to you after the day after the Mavs and Celtics played Game 3 of the NBA Finals. It was, we talked about it. It was do or die for the Mavs. They had to win to, essentially keep their season alive. I mean, obviously they weren't going to be eliminated in a Game 3, but down 2-0. You're playing at home for the first time in the finals. You have a chance to make it 2-1. There was a lot on the line in that Game 3 because no team in 156 tries has ever come back from being down 3-0. And the Mavs, they came out with their tails on fire. They went up by 13 points in the first quarter. Kyrie Irving was hitting shots. He showed up in a big way, the way we said he had to. There was no way Kyrie Irving was going to have 3 consecutive bad games. And he did. He came out in Game 3. He showed up. He led all players on both sides with 35 points in Game 3. But the Mavs, they just couldn't get it done. It was a 3-point game in the fourth quarter with about 4 minutes left when Luka got his 6th foul. And it was a bang-bang play. I can see how they could have called it either way, honestly. But I think when it's that close, you would expect the officials to just let it go. I mean, Luka fell down, and Jaylen Brown was probably going to get an easy score at the rim anyway. So, in that kind of situation, you'd like to see the officials swallow their whistle when it's that close and not foul out the best player on both teams in the NBA Finals. But it was the first postseason foul out for Luka. And then the Mavs, they still fought. They came back. It was a 1-point game with a little under 3 minutes left after Kyrie Irving hit a big bucket. But they just couldn't hold on. And they ended up losing the game 106-99. And they fall into a deficit that has never been overcome before. So I know they're trying to keep their hopes high. I know Luka is coming out here and saying it ain't over till it's over, and all we got to do is do what we did in the regular season, where when they lost 5 or 6 games, just turn it around. I have no doubt this team can win 4 games in a row. I just don't think it's going to be in this particular situation. I think this, as optimistic as I can be at times, irrationally optimistic, this season is over, essentially. Now, I'm not saying they're going to get swept. I do think playing one more game at home, and you have Kyrie in a groove now, and Luka, he's probably going to want to make up for, fouling out and playing horrendous defense. I mean, he's been great in a lot of areas. Defense hasn't been one of them. He's been blown by way too easily. He doesn't get back in transition defense. Just too much yapping at the officials. That's his Achilles heel. As good as Luka is, that's something that holds him back a little bit. And that's not the only reason the Mavs lost, but it did contribute to it. So everybody's got to take accountability. He did take accountability for it. Kyrie stepped up when they needed him to, but just as the case in games 1 and 2, it just wasn't a good enough collective effort. You get something from one spot, and then you're lacking in the other spot. The Mavs just haven't been able to put it all together for a complete game in order to beat this Celtics team. And you got to give the Celtics defense some credit. I mean, they've been very, very good. They have no holes. They are solid top to bottom defensively. They don't have very many mental lapses. They're good. They're great overall, and they have been the better team, and you have to give them credit there. But on the flip side of that, the Mavs have just not played up to their abilities either. I saw a stat. I can't remember if it was before Game 3 or right after Game 3, but something about the non-Luka Kyrie Mavs are shooting 8% on wide open 3-point shots in this series, which is absolutely ridiculous. What is that? What is that? I have some some I don't even know what you would call it. Some R-rated, X-rated. No, heck no, that's a different story.
Expletives. Expletives, I believe, is the word that you're looking for.
Yeah, I have some R-rated stuff that I could say about that, but I'm not going to go there because we intentionally delayed this a little bit so it wouldn't get to that. So it is what it is. I'm fine. I'm finally back home. That's what really sucked. I went to game 2. I stayed up in Boston. I stayed up in the Northeast. I took my wife with me. We looked around a little bit. And I got to say, although it really sucks that, the Mavs aren't going to win this series, Boston cannot take this away from me, DJ. They cannot take this lobster bisque away from me that I got in Boston. That
was incredible.
I will always have that. I know we're kind of going off script here, but I had to add this in here. Boston may win the NBA championship, but I won the food championship of that trip, and they can never take that bisque away from me. So take that, Celtics fans. I took your bisque. So, the Mavs going into game 4. It's a home game. I don't know what to expect, DJ. I mean, I don't think this is a team that's just going to roll over and quit. They've made it too far to do that. If anything, I feel like the pressure's off now because, I mean, nobody expects them. I don't even expect them to come back from this. I mean, there's a reason 156 teams have tried and failed. So one of the closest teams to do it was the Celtics last year when they went down 3-0 to the Heat, and they came all the way back, forced to Game 7, and then lost in Game 7 to the Miami Heat. So, I mean, it's possible to get to that point, but there's a reason nobody's done it. So, I mean, I could see the Mavs coming out and giving the home crowd one last, good outing, end it on a positive note at home, and, send it back to Boston for a Game 5. I don't think it gets past a Game 5 at this point. I think this is all but over, and this is just about putting the finishing touches on it and giving our obituary, or starting our obituary for the Mavs. So, what do you think about Game 3, and what do you expect going into Game 4?
I got a few things, so just bear with me. I guess the first thing that's on my mind is probably the first thing that's on a lot of people's minds, and that's Luka Doncic, and not necessarily just his play, but his behavior. Listen, I've been in the coaching standpoint, like, it does you absolutely no good to just scream and yell at officials. As a coach, it doesn't do you any good. It especially doesn't do you any good as a player. And, we can say what we want, but the fact of the matter is we wouldn't have games without officials. And Luka has to understand that people are going to miss calls. People are going to make calls that you don't like. And it's not your job as a player to criticize them. It is your job as a player to play through circumstances that you can't control. You cannot control what an official is going to call, but you can control how you react to it. And I feel that Luka has reacted poorly, not just in this series, but throughout this postseason. I think a major step for him in his development is going to be developing emotional maturity and being able to stay cool under less than satisfactory calls and less than satisfactory officiating, because he gets in his own head. And there was a point I guess it was last night. All these days are running together, but there was a point last night where he was in his head so bad where he wasn't even doing anything offensively for a little while. And that's whenever they went down 21 points in the fourth quarter. 21 points. And so let's talk about that for a second.
After being up 13 earlier in the game, like, they started out incredibly. And that was that. And I'm going to let you continue your point. Sorry for getting off track here, but that was part of the Mavs giving up their early lead so fast, is Luka getting out of it mentally. and having those lapses and falling, trying to. He does. I don't want to say foul baiting because there are a lot of times that he does get hit, but he will exaggerate the contact a little bit. And when he falls down, when he doesn't need to, then it gives the other team a 5-on-4 situation. And the Celtics took advantage of that, and they got wide open threes, and it allowed them to come back quickly instead of the Mavs, putting their foot down and expanding their own lead. So, anyway.
I don't
Continue.
necessarily have a problem with selling fouls, but I do have a problem with is not getting your ass up and getting back on the defensive end. Okay, people fall down all the time. It's fine, but get up, all right, and get your butt back on defense because the seconds that you're spending yelling at Scott Foster or whoever the hell is officiating, you could be getting back and helping your teammates on defense. Instead, you have a 5-on-4, and the Celtics are going to take advantage of that every single time. They shoot the ball too well. They're going to find a hole, and they are going to score. It's like clockwork with them. They're way too efficient offensively, and you're just making their lives easier. And let's put ourselves in the official's shoe. All right. Let's say Luka screams at you about something. Are you going to be more apt to make a call for him? Because I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. And
especially if it's literally like every
every
other
time.
play.
It's every play he is screaming at the officials, and it's a wonder that he hasn't gotten teed up because he deserves it. I would have teed him up already. We would have put a stop to this back in game 1. This would not happen. But because he is a superstar, the officials are more apt to give him more leeway, but guess what? They're not going to give him calls. I mean, there is an obvious feud going on between Luka Doncic and the officiating crews that we have had in this series, and it's all Luka's fault. It is all 100% Luka's fault. He needs to shut up, and he needs to play. Just play. And that is whenever he's at his best, is whenever he is laser focused on the task at hand. And like I said earlier, because of his shift in focus or lack thereof, that was one of the main reasons we went down by 21 points. But he's not the only person to blame. Like we said earlier, you made a really good point of his teammates not showing up, specifically the role players do not show up. And, whenever we gave up the lead and we went down and down and down and down all the way to a 21-point deficit, it's like we just lacked heart at times. And that's scary. That's whenever things start getting concerning. It's one thing if you're just getting beat, okay? But whenever at times there seems to be a lack of concentration, dare I say, a lack of effort, a lack of intensity, a lack of enthusiasm, that's when if you're Jason Kidd, you need to call a timeout and send a message to your people that are on the floor, because that's unacceptable.
Yeah, don't call a timeout when your team's on a 20-2 run. You need to call the timeout.
That wasn't
before it gets to the 21 point.
I see. Okay, I kind of saw what he was doing. Like, I get it. Things we were kind of starting to get a little out of control. And he wanted to kind of, set the ship straight. But
the Celtics were kind of unorganized on offense during that stretch too. So it's like, the Mavs had come up with several empty possessions, but it's not like the Celtics were scoring either. So, he took a timeout to try and get his team organized on offense. But in hindsight, it really gave the Celtics another opportunity to get organized on offense. And
I agree. It was more effective for the Celtics. It was more effective for the Celtics. But I'm not saying that I agree with it, but I'm saying that I understand what he was trying to do.
Yeah. I think I speak for both of us, is, I know the timeout got scrutinized, but playing Tim Hardaway Jr. nearly 20 minutes
I'm going to get to that.
We'll get to that because I have some thoughts.
But yeah, so yeah, at times it just seemed like we had like a lack of heart, and Kid really needed to address that. And lo and behold, once we were able to get over ourselves, Luka specifically got over himself, we were able to claw our way back. Now, I do want to address that last foul, and I understand where you're coming from. As an official, do you really want to call that foul at that point in the game? Again, I can go back to it being Luka's fault in that you shouldn't be putting yourself in that situation with 5 fouls.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't. On a call that could go either way, you've already pissed off the officials. I mean, extremely. What the hell do you expect to happen? Do you really expect to get that call? I knew the second that it happened what the call was going to be, just based off of what had happened previously in the game. And whenever it's a 50-50 call like that, you better believe the officials are going to go with their gut. And right now, I mean, at that point, they're pissed off. So they're going to go with exactly what they're thinking. And as a player, as an all-star, as one of the top 3 players in this league, you got to be better than that down the stretch. You got to be smarter than that down the stretch. And you got to make better decisions defensively. And the thing is, we wouldn't have even been in that situation had he not gotten so many cheap fouls, being an absolute cone on the defensive end for the whole duration of the game. As great as he is offensively, he has got some major work to do. And I don't like Brian Windhorst by any means, but he had some great points in his post-game interview, and stating that Luka is going to have a really hard time winning a championship the way his emotional maturity is right now.
That was one of those things where it was like, it was the right message, but it was the wrong messenger.
Yep.
But I completely agree. I mean, look, he's got to be better. He is, as good as he is, and as much as he's praised when he's doing all the historic things and putting up the numbers we, haven't seen in years, and he already has a Hall of Fame worthy career. I mean, that's just how this has gone for him so far. But it's just hard not to criticize the effort we've seen from him on the defensive end. And look, the advanced stats don't support the idea that he has been just absolutely horrible on defense. But, just the eye test and, going back and looking over film and, seeing all the times he's been blown by and, which puts it's not really the blow by itself that has killed the Mavs. Somebody blowing by Luka and scoring. It's the next guy over. It's the play that happens after, when Luka's guy blows by him and sucks in the defense, and then he passes it out to another guy, and then even if he doesn't shoot it, he swings it to the next guy. It just puts you behind in that situation, and the Mavs just haven't been able to recover from it.
Yeah, anytime you give up paint touches like that consistently, and they're able to reverse the ball out and around and, get one more passing situations. And that's what we saw over and over and over again from the Boston Celtics on offense, is they would literally just move the ball until they got an open look from 3 and drill it. Or we would overplay on a closeout. They'd blow by and dunk on us.
Their shot quality has just been incredible all season.
Outstanding. And they understand spacing, and they understand how to work for those shots. They know exactly what they're looking for. And they also understand that they need to target Luka at all times whenever they're on.
They have been ruthless.
Eating him alive.
Ruthless. Unbelievable. I've never seen they have taken it to a whole new level attacking Luka. And that's part of and they can, because they have so many players who can drive and punish like that. That's one thing. Even if the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals, even if they had wanted to, try and punish Luka, they didn't have as many talented guys who can get to the rim off the dribble the same way that the Celtics do. So that's been one huge difference from the last round to this round, in my opinion.
Yeah, you have to guard everybody, and that's the issue with the Mavs is you've got a lame duck on the defensive end in Luka Doncic, and he's just been getting exposed. I hate to say it, but he has been getting exposed. I don't know if it's just a lack of effort or if there's like issues going on with his injuries, which there very well could be. Either way, Brian Windhorst, again, I can't stand the guy, but Brian Windhorst put it best whenever he called Luka an absolute hole on the defensive end. I think that's probably the best description I have heard yet of Luka Doncic's defensive play in this series.
Well, and again, I mean, as we know Luka has to give a better effort on the defensive end. We've talked about it. Out of all the stuff he does great, that's one area where he's going to have to get better if the Mavs are going to, take things up to the next level and get over the hump and win an NBA championship, because they're just not there right now. And, that's part of why they're not there. But it's not the only reason they haven't been able to.
No.
Luka, he's the MVP of this team, even though they're about to lose this series. Several other guys have had to step up. Kyrie Irving, he was a no-show in the first two games. He finally came out in game 3, but it's too late. I mean, you gotta do it. If you're a superstar, you got to do it night in and night out. You can't, even if Kyrie had just been decent in the first two games, it might be a different story right now with the Mavs having won at least one game out of the first 3. But he was abysmal in the first two games, just awful. And then, guys like Derek Lively, and look, I'm not going to be too hard on Derek Lively because he has gone through so much. He's 20 years old. He's a rookie playing in the NBA Finals. So it's unfortunate that he picked the first two games of. He didn't pick it. That's kind of harsh wording on my end, but it's kind of unfortunate that he ended up looking like a rookie for the first time this season in those first two games of the NBA Finals. But, we saw what he could do in game 3. The Mavs, he was a big reason why the Mavs almost came back and won that game. Let me see I think he had 11 points and 13 rebounds, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see here. Mavs lost 106-99. And Derek Lively, yes, he had 11 points, 13 rebounds, 2 steals, and an assist, shot 5 of 6 overall in 30 minutes off the bench. So that's by far the most minutes he's played in this series so far, and he was a +6 off the bench. But, just so many things have had to go wrong for the Mavs to be down 3-0 in this series. Kyrie, Lively, trying to get his feet under him in the first two games after being a huge piece of this team in the first 3 rounds of the playoffs. Derrick Jones Jr. not doing the same stuff. He hasn't done the same stuff he was doing in the previous rounds. PJ Washington, hasn't been producing the same as far at least scoring wise. He's trying defensively, but again, when you have a weak link in the chain on your defense, it's hard to recover from that all the time. And that's why the Celtics are so good. They don't have that weak link in their chain defensively. Everybody is able to stay in front of their guy. It's hard. Even Pritchard for the Celtics, even that guy, he's like 5'10", 5'11" on a good day. He's like the reincarnation of JJ Barea. He is hard to score on.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's that's something the Mavs don't have. And PJ Washington, I think he's done a pretty good job defensively. He's been a part of some really tough. That's another thing. You don't see PJ Washington complaining to the officials, and he's probably been hosed more than Luka has been in this series because at the end of game 2. The Mavs were down 5 with about a minute left, and PJ drove to the rim, and he got pushed in the back by Jaylen Brown, and they didn't call it. That could have been a big momentum play swing for that game. And then last night, the Mavs were down 3 with about, let's see, I think it was like 2 minutes or a little less than 2 minutes. Mavs were down 3. They had the ball. PJ Washington set a screen, and he didn't move. They called it a moving screen, but I just didn't see it. Again, it was one of those calls where it was like, it just did not look like a foul. And even if it was so subtle and so, like, it's just not a call you would see in a playoff setting. But anyway, PJ Washington got called for a moving screen that I personally did not think was a moving screen. And then off that turnover, Derek White ended up hitting a three on the next possession, which essentially ended it. That was the game right there. So, but PJ Washington did hit 3 out of his 6 threes in game 3. So he showed up a little bit, had 8 rebounds, 2 assists, but it's just too late. I mean, all these guys, or some of these guys, are showing life right now, but it's just too late.
Hey guys, we're taking a quick break here to tell you about Prize Picks. If you like daily fantasy sports, Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. It's super easy to use. You can pick the over and under on all your favorite players, not just the Dallas Mavericks, but any NBA games or WNBA games, or we got football coming up here in a little while. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff that you can take the over or under on. And you can use our promo code Step Back for up to $100 matched on your first deposit. So, for example, if you use our promo code Step Back and you decide to deposit $100, you'll have $200 in your account from Prize Picks matching that. So be sure to take advantage of this offer and have some fun with daily fantasy sports as we get.
And we'll get into this now too. The Mavs can't. I don't think Jason Kidd can play Maxi Kleber or Tim Hardaway Jr. another minute in this series. It's over anyway. I don't think the Mavs are going to come back from a 3-0 deficit and be the first team to do that in NBA history. But, if you're going to win a game or two to extend this and at least make it interesting, you can't play Maxi Kleber or Tim Hardaway Jr. Kleber, look, it might be his shoulder. It might be, he's still hurt and he's not confident. Whatever the case may be, you can't have him out there if he's going to be hesitant. And he is hesitant. He is just a decoy out there, and the Celtics know it.
Yeah.
Celtics know it, and when Kleber is out there, you might as well just say the Mavs are playing 4-on-5 because the Celtics don't respect Kleber at all. And he only played 8 minutes in game 3, and he was a -13 when he was out there. You can't do that. Kleber's done. He's cooked. You can't play him anymore, kid. And then Tim Hardaway Jr., and we're going to get into this now because this was the most egregious out of anything Kidd has done. Kidd has had an amazing postseason overall. This move in game 3, I could not believe it, DJ, because Tim Hardaway Jr. hasn't hit a shot since May 18th in a game against the OKC Thunder. So in the second round is the last time THJ hit a shot. And with your season on the line and your team making a push, when Luka fouled out, Kidd decided to go with Tim Hardaway Jr. And Tim Hardaway Jr. ended up playing 19 minutes, didn't score, went 0 of 5 overall, 0 of 3 from 3, and was a -16 in 19 minutes. In a game that was decided by 7 points, looking at those minutes, 8 minutes for Kleber, 19 minutes for Tim Hardaway Jr., and Kleber was -13, Hardaway was -16. That is brutal. That is absolutely brutal. And I just, we're not going to put it on one guy. We're not going to put everything on Kidd, but that tanked the Mavs' chances of coming back.
It's a group effort. It's a group effort.
Crazy.
But don't get me wrong. But, whenever you put someone like Tim Hardaway Jr. in the game who is only useful or who is only as useful as his jump shot is carrying him, he will only go as far as his jump shot carries him. You're taking a very huge risk. he's either going to help you or he is going to hurt you severely, because the guy isn't really that solid of a ball handler, specifically in traffic. He may be as bad as Luka is on defense, and he ain't even hurt. What are we doing? And, I can understand maybe throwing him in there early in the first half to get him like maybe a couple looks to see if we're hitting today, to see if it's going to be one of those days, because you've said in the past he can help you win games if he's hitting. But if he doesn't hit like his first 2 or 3 shots, it's usually a pretty good indicator that, this is the kind of day we're going to have. And yet we still went with him. And I'm with you, man. The most befuddling thing to me was whenever we put him in for Luka after Luka fouled out, and we could have gone with literally anybody else. And we could have gone with Jaden Hardy, and I would have liked it much better. At least Jaden Hardy is going to bring some energy out there on both ends of the floor. Dude, the only thing Hardy is looking to do is score. That's all he's looking to do is shoot the ball, and he can't even do that right now.
I'm not even over-exaggerating when I say the Mavs would be better off throwing Omax Prosper in there with zero experience as a rookie who hasn't played a ton this season, except for in like garbage time situations or games where, Luka and Kyrie didn't play, stuff like that. I'm not kidding when I say the Mavs would be better off throwing him in there in the NBA Finals with their season on the line than giving Tim Hardaway Jr. one more minute.
Yep.
That's where I'm at with it. Put Omax Prosper in there and get him some experience. A guy that's going to be part of your team going forward for the immediate future, maybe the long-term future, and not a guy who's going to be out on the next thing smoking.
He better be freaking traded by the draft. Like
I think he will be. I don't think Tim Hardaway Jr. makes it another season on this team. One way or another, I don't think he's going to be on this team when training camp comes around. He can't be. I mean, he's been holding this team back for too long. And again, it's not all on one person, but it's like we've seen in this series. The Celtics don't have any wasted roster spots.
Nope.
They don't have guys where it's just like if you throw them in the game, it's just like, oh no, this is going to be awful for us. That's not happening with them. So, the Mavs have to have that same approach. It's like, what are they going to do to replace Tim Hardaway Jr. and his spot on the roster to where they can be more competitive top to bottom if they get in this situation next season? So
I don't know what we were going to be able to get for him. I mean, who wants him?
To me, it's not even about that. Like, even if you salary dump the guy, maybe you can get if a team's looking to save cap space next summer, maybe you find a guy on another team that has an extra year who you think could be somewhat serviceable for you. But since they have an extra year on their salary and Tim Hardaway Jr. is expiring, maybe you get like a second round pick out of the deal or something like that in this draft, which I know isn't a great draft anyway, but you know what I'm saying. In this
draft, you're just as likely to draft someone decent in the second half as you are, or in the second round as you are in the first round. And that's not because this draft is that deep. That's because that, everyone is relatively that level of talented. But I think there are some gems in the second round that we may be able to get, but that's for another time.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I'm looking at. It's not about trying to flip Tim Hardaway Jr. into somebody who is the answer right now. It's just about getting a different guy on the team, or at least freeing him, getting his salary off the roster so Kidd doesn't feel like he's obligated. Because, I mean, the guy, Tim Hardaway Jr. made a little over $17 million this year. When they signed him to that extension in 2021, I think, he was coming off a really good season that last year. Had a pretty good postseason, I believe, against the Clippers, if I'm remembering that correctly. Like, he was one of the main reasons that series ended up going to a Game 7. But it's over. It's not going to happen. They're not going to get anything back. Like, he doesn't fit what this team does anymore. Nope. And the Mavs have got to find a way to get him off the roster and try and replace him with a guy that can be a 3-and-D wing. Or just even if the 3-pointer is not there, just a versatile offensive player that can play defense as a wing. And getting THJ off the books, opens up an opportunity for a guy like Omax Prosper to have, something going into training camp next year. And Kid even said it earlier this year that, he's kind of factoring Prosper into the plans next season. So he'll have an opportunity to, get a rotation spot. So that's the thing. I mean, again, it's not all on one player, but it's just such a glaring weakness. I cannot believe, given what has happened with Tim Hardaway Jr. this postseason, he's only had one good game this entire postseason. And for Kid to think that was the button to press with the season on the line, and your team making a run in the fourth quarter of Game 3 of the NBA Finals, and you go with Tim Hardaway Jr., just that's ridiculous. That's so bad. I'm befuddled, DJ. I cannot believe he did that. But it is what it is. I mean, the Mavs have made their bed, and now they'll have to sleep in it. We'll see. The delusional side of me wants to say that if any duo had a capability of coming back from a 3-0 deficit, it feels like Luka and Kyrie would have as good of a chance as anybody as a duo. But the problem is that what I said earlier in this pod, you got to have a complete effort. It can't just be them. It definitely just can't be one of them. They both have to show out, but then you have to have a complete effort across the board just to get a win. And then you have to do that 4 consecutive times now against a team that if the Celtics finish off this series in a sweep on Friday, they will finish the season, regular season and playoffs combined, with an 80-20 record. They are unbelievable. And I know their path, we talked about their path to the NBA Finals was a cakewalk, and they got very lucky, with several key guys through the Eastern Conference playoffs being injured. So, that you got to give them credit for, beating who was in front of them, but you also have to factor in that they weren't as tested and what's the word? They didn't have to go through the wear and tear, because they didn't have to play teams at full strength like the Mavs did, aside from the first round against the Clippers. So all that factors into it. Still, I did not expect the Mavs to be in a situation where they might be potentially swept. I thought they would at least grab one of these first 2 games, and they could have very well won both Game 2 and Game 3. They just didn't capitalize, and that stings. That really hurts. That's going to be a sour taste in the mouth for the rest of the summer, going into the draft, free agency, and all that stuff. It just sucks. And one thing about this series that has really opened our eyes, and we kind of knew it going into the postseason, but it really hadn't been a major factor until we played a team like the Celtics that, they have several guys that can take their opponents off the dribble and get to the rim and everything. The lack of a true third ball handler / scorer, a guy who can consistently get his own shot, put the ball in the basket, that has been a glaring weakness for the Mavs in this series, especially when Kyrie didn't have it going. It's just like, holy crap, they really have nobody who can go and get their own shot aside from Luka when Kyrie isn't going. And DJ, I put it out there. I got yelled at a little bit. I'm going to continue to get yelled at, but I mean, you might as well prepare for it. This is happening. This is happening this summer. I know LeBron's old. I get it. He's like almost 40 years old, but he still averages 25, 8 and 8 or something like that. And I think all this stuff, I don't know. I have this in the back of my mind. I have this thing like, the the Lakers coaching search has been a complete shit show. They haven't been able to nail down somebody to take the job there yet. To me, that says like, okay, well maybe they're wanting some reassurance that the team's going to be intact a little bit, and then but LeBron's going to be a free agent, and he probably hasn't committed. I don't know, man. I think there's been a lot of noise. Kyrie tried to recruit him last summer. He has relationships with Luka, J. Kidd, Nico Harrison, obviously Kyrie. I think he could help in a third role. He's older. You wouldn't want to sign him to like a long-term thing, but like coming back next year and keeping your main core together that was so good and got you to the NBA Finals, and then you potentially add a guy like LeBron who's still playing at a high level, but he doesn't need to be the guy anymore. I think you take a guy like him and put him into a third star role, and I think it would work out perfectly for the Mavs. Am I crazy?
A couple things. You are correct in that he would definitely help us. LeBron would help any team. He's LeBron James. That's pretty straightforward. Here's my only two things. Number one, for the Mavericks to get LeBron James, they would have to draft Bronny James. I feel like that is. I'm fairly certain. I'm fairly certain. I'm never 100% on anything anymore, but I'm fairly certain of that. He's come out and said that that's not the case, but LeBron is also notorious for lying. So there's that. Number two, how are we going to afford him?
Oh, he's going to have to make if it happens, it's going to have to be, and I mean, look, it would have to be an unprecedented situation where he decides, okay, I have made so much money throughout the course of my 21-year career, not just with basketball, everything else he does outside of basketball. He's the first active billionaire athlete in the NBA. So he's got his money. It would have to be a situation where he's like, okay, I've gotten the money. I want to try and win a championship or two before I retire. And to do that, he's going to have to take less and join a team without, that's the thing. If he wants to win a championship, he's going to have to take less, because you don't want to join a team and then have them gut their roster. You want to join a team that has, the pieces in place like the Mavs do to get that far. And you want to be that complementary piece that gets them over the top. So that would be the thing for LeBron. He would have to accept that and, be willing to take less money just to join the Mavs, even if it's for a year, to see how it goes. And that way you're not disrupting what the team has, and you're just being a complimentary piece. You can be that third guy to where if Kyrie has a stinker like he did in game 1 or game 2, you got Luka and LeBron. What you going to do with that? So, I can guarantee you, after watching LeBron James in, what was it, like 10 straight years or 8 straight years he went to the finals. It was 8 straight years he went to the finals. He wouldn't have very many games like that. I don't think he's had a bad finals game since game 4 of the 2011 finals against the Mavs. So I don't know. That's the thing. He would have to be willing to take a significant pay cut and join a team without gutting the depth. And he would have to also choose to leave Los Angeles, which is, he likes it there and his family's there and all that. But the Lakers are a sinking ship. They're not going anywhere. So
no,
it just depends. It depends how much LeBron wants to win a championship. How much does he want to add to his legacy instead of being stuck on how many championships does he have right now? 4?
Yeah.
4. Yeah.
Well, we can speculate all we want. We don't know what's going through his mind. The only people that know what LeBron's thinking are LeBron and potentially Brian Windhorst, and that's about it. But if we can make it happen, awesome. I'm all for it, because it would obviously help us. I'm not disputing you there. I just don't see how it happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. That would again, I don't know what's going on in his head. I don't really even know what he's like as a person, truly. I mean, none of us do, but I do know that to get where he is at now in his career, you have to have a tremendous ego and a tremendous level of self-expectation. And I don't know that he would be willing to take a lesser role along with a lesser paycheck. I don't know that his ego would allow it. Again, he may shock me, and I hope he does. I really do. But just dealing with high-powered athletes like that, like for instance, Michael Jordan would never. He would never.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant, he would never.
Yep.
So, if we're going to put him in that sort of echelon of guys like that, if he has that same sort of personality that those two guys do, which I mean, whenever you talk basketball, you always talk MJ, Kobe, LeBron. Those are usually the first three names that come up, right? I don't know. It all comes down to whether or not LeBron wants to come to Dallas. And if he does want to come to Dallas, they'll make it happen.
Well, and you could there's a scenario out there where, and I don't know if LeBron, I think Windhorst said something about maybe he had already opted out of the last year of his contract. I haven't seen anything like officially confirmed with that. That's just what he said. But like, say he hasn't opted out, there's a situation, whatever the opt-out date is, there's a scenario where he could opt into the last year of his contract, and then the Mavs could do like a sign and trade where you're getting off some of these guys that we've talked about they need to probably get off of anyway. Do
you think that the Lakers would be willing to take on useless pieces?
I think if it's a situation where LeBron's going to leave for nothing anyway, because we know how he uses his leverage for stuff like that. I think it's a situation where it's like, okay, well, I could just opt out and leave you with nothing, because it's not like the Lakers are going to have cap space to do anything anyway. So it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to opt out and leave anyway. Or I could opt in to the last year of my deal and you agree to trade me to Dallas, and then you get some pieces that aren't really worth much, but maybe you can do something.
If the pieces you're thinking of are the same pieces I'm thinking of, they're not worth. I mean, they're literally like negative. Like it's just one big giant negative.
You take Tim Hardaway Jr., Maxi Kleba, and to sweeten the pot for you, we'll give you a slightly used Josh Green. How about that?
Oh, I love it. That makes me so happy. That would make me so happy. I would freaking dance in the street and get ran over by a transfer truck in my glee. I mean, good Lord.
The easiest path to it, though, and again, like I said, you don't know how the ego and all that stuff factors into it, but the easiest path would be to salary dump Tim Hardaway Jr. to a team like the Detroit Pistons, who are going to have a ton of salary cap space. And let's be real, the Pistons aren't signing anybody in free agency that's worth crap. And they're going to have to use their space somehow. So, they might as well take on expiring deals like that. Salary dump Tim Hardaway Jr. to open up the full MLE, and then LeBron swallows his pride and signs the full MLE for a year and see how it goes. That would be the easiest path to it. But again, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that factors into that, and you don't know how it would go. All I know, DJ, is there has been so much smoke around this, even before Kyrie was on the Mavs. Windhorst was saying, keep the Mavs in your back pocket. That was his words, back pocket, because he loves Luka. He would love to potentially play with Luka. Well, then Kyrie gets thrown into the equation, and we've seen how good those two can be together. And now we know they're missing one piece. They're missing a third reliable scorer, distributor, ball handler. Well, LeBron's all of that. even at his advanced age, and he would help out tremendously, and he has relationships with all of these guys. And Kyrie reached out last summer just to gauge LeBron's interest, according to Shams Charania, about joining the Mavs. So there's been this smoke going on for a while, and I always said, I think I don't know if I actually said it on the pod. I think I may have told you about it, in a text thread or something, but I always said that if the Mavs lost these NBA finals, that would ease the pride thing for LeBron a little bit, because now he can do like Kevin Durant did to justify joining the Warriors after that 2016 season, because the Warriors had won 73 games, but they lost to LeBron in the NBA finals. And then Kevin Durant said, oh, well, I can be the piece that, puts them over the top for the next 2 years. And so he went to the Warriors. If the Warriors win that finals, I don't think Kevin Durant goes there. I don't think it happens. And that's kind of the situation I've been looking at, with the Mavs in these finals. If they end up losing, and it looks like they will, LeBron can look at this and say, hey, I can go there and be the final piece. I can go there and put this team over the top because they've got good pieces in place. They've got 2 good superstars. I can be the third guy, and we have the complementary pieces around us to get the job done. If the Mavs would have won this series, it's like, oh, am I really going to leave LA to join a team that just won the NBA Finals? That makes me look kind of bad. So I don't know.
With what he's done already as far as team hopping is concerned, he can't make himself look any worse than he already has. But I'll stop there. But
anyway, back to actual basketball talk. We'll end with this, DJ. What are you expecting in Game 4? I'll go last. I'll let you go first here, though. What are you expecting from the Mavs in Game 4 at American Airlines Center, facing elimination for the first time this postseason?
Do you want to know what I hope, or do you want to know what I think?
I want to both. What do you hope they do? What do you think will happen?
I mean, I hope that both Luka and Kyrie have exceptional games. That's what it's going to take. I hope Luka shuts his mouth, opens his eyes, and starts playing on both ends of the floor. I hope that our role players actually have some kind of coming out game. I hope PJ Washington is able to eclipse the 20-point mark. That would be nice. What do I think is going to happen? I'm going to get hate for it, but here it is. I think we go out there and we look half dead and we get blown off the floor. That's what I think is going to happen. That's what my gut tells me.
I mean, I don't think anybody can blame you for feeling that way. I mean, it's gut-wrenching when you're seeing, like, every one of them knew going into Game 3 the season was essentially on the line. And then to come all the way back from being down 21 in the fourth to get within 1 point with about 3 minutes left, your best player fouls out and you're not able to get over the hump and you go down 0-3, that's disheartening. That's as gut-wrenching as it gets. Now, I think we're going to get one, DJ. And like I said, I don't think it's going to go going back to Boston for a Game 5. I don't think it's going to go any further than that, given the situation that the Mavs have put themselves in. But, I fully expect the Mavs to come out and play with some fire in Game 4, just like they did to start Game 3. And again, they really have no pressure at this point. You're down 0-3. I mean, you're now in a situation where no other team has ever come back from this deficit. So you're not even thinking about that at this point. It's just like, how do you get one game? So, I mean, you're already in this situation. Boston already thinks they've won it for good reason. You got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown hugging each other like they've already won the trophy and talking about it like they've already won the trophy, and they're press conferences after the game and all that. So, if you look at it from that perspective, it's like Boston, they kind of already feel like it's theirs. And the Mavs, they're not dead yet. It feels like it, but they still have some life. And we know how Luka has like the highest average in elimination games in NBA history, I believe. He usually puts his best foot forward when his back is against the wall. And, I don't know. I feel like they're going to come out in game 4 and they're going to take care of business, make it 3-1, and then go back to Boston, and then it'll take care of itself from there. But that's what I think. I think they're going to get one, just like they did in 2022 in the Western Conference Finals. They went down 3-0 to the Warriors. They won game 4 at home to make it respectable at least, and then when they went back for game 5 in Golden State, they got blown out. So, that's what I'm expecting. But guys, we're gonna stop it there because there's only so much despair and depression and whatever other words you want to use I can take. And we already delayed this a while just so it would be a little bit more level-headed, because we were not in the headspace to do a podcast last night. It probably would have made for some high-level entertainment for some people watching, but we just couldn't do it, and I had a plane to catch at like 4 a.m. So we just said screw it. So, but guys, look, we appreciate it. We've had a great time, covering all these playoff games. We've done one for every single Mavs playoff game. Been a lot of fun. I hope Friday night isn't the last time we get to do it. I hope it gets extended at least one more. But, whenever this season ends, I think DJ and I, we're going to take, a couple weeks off just to kind of regroup before we come back and jump into the off-season stuff with the draft and free agency and all that. But, guys, we appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your night, and have a great weekend this weekend. And, again, hopefully the Mavs can extend this series, and we'll have another game to cover next week on Monday night. But we'll see y'all. Y'all have a good one.